Chinese society influenced the development of neighboring lands during post-classical times. Chinese armies invaded Korea and Vietnam, while Chinese merchants established relations with Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Chinese techniques of government and administration shaped public life in Korea, Vietnam, and Japan. Chinese values and cultural traditions won a place alongside native traditions. Chinese armies ventured into Korea and Vietnam as early as the Qin and Han dynasties. Han armies invaded northern Korea, but were ultimately forced to abandon the southern part of the peninsula. The people there fiercely resisted them, and the area remained largely independent, although the Chinese viewed them as barbarians. Truth be told, Korea was a difficult place to govern, as the place frequently rebelled. By the late 1st century BC, three kingdoms emerged in Korea. The Goguryeo, established in 37 BC, controlled northern Korea and part of modern China. The Paikche, established in 18 BC, was in central Korea, while the Silla, formed in 57 BC, was located in the southeast. Relationships between the three were of conflicts and alliances. In 313 AD, the Goguryeo ended Chinese colonization and made its borders contiguous with the Paikche. In the late 4th century, the Paikche and the Goguryeo were at war with one another. And while these two were at war, the Silla kingdom grew in its power. As the Han weakened, local aristocrats organized movements that ousted the Chinese forces from their lands. Following the collapse of the Han and the subsequent Age of Disunity, Korea was largely left alone. Only during the Tang did Chinese resources once more enable the Chinese to be able to mount military campaigns on a large scale. During the 7th century, Tang armies conquered much of Korea. While the northern Goguryeo kingdom fought against the Chinese, Paikche attacked the Silla. The Silla sought an alliance with the Tang to defeat the Paikche, and in 660, the Tang invaded Paikche land while the Silla attacked from the east, leading to the fall of the Paikche capital and its defeat. With the Paikche defeated, the Tang and Silla attacked and defeated the Goguryeo in 668. Despite this cooperation, the Chinese quickly showed their desire to control the entirety of Korea, and the two sides would fight one another until 676, with the Silla triumphant. Both the Tang and the Silla preferred to avoid a long and costly conflict, so they agreed to a compromise. Chinese forces would withdraw from Korea, and the Silla king would recognize the Tang emperor as his overlord. Korea was therefore a vassal state in the Chinese empire, but in practice, Korea was in most respects an independent kingdom. Chinese relationships with the Vietnamese were far more tense. When Tang armies ventured into Vietnam, they encountered resistance. Now, Tang forces would win control of Viet towns and cities, and they launched efforts to absorb the Viets into the Chinese society. The Viets even adopted Chinese agricultural methods and irrigation systems, as well as Chinese schools and administrative techniques. Viet elites studied Confucian texts and took the exams. Vietnamese authorities entered the tributary relationship with the Chinese court. Yet the Viet resented Chinese efforts to dominate the southern land, and they mounted revolts against Tang authorities. And as the Tang fell, the Viet would retain their independence and resisted later Chinese efforts to imperial expansion. Now, like Korea, Vietnam differed from China in many different ways. Many Vietnamese retained their indigenous religion in preference to Chinese cultural traditions. Women played a far more prominent role in Vietnam's society and economics than did their counterparts in China. For example, Southeast Asian women dominated local and regional markets for centuries, and they participated in business ventures closed to women in the more rigid society of China.